I welcome you to today's episode, where we examine the personality, leadership style, ideology, and vision of our great leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and place them in historical context by comparing them with genuine, selfless freedom fighters across Africa and the world. Today, we will be talking about identity, borders, and the right to choose, why self-determination never disappears. Every modern state is built on borders, but not every border is built on consent. Some borders emerge from agreement, shared history, and common identity. Others are imposed through conquest, colonial arrangements, or political convenience. History shows us that when borders ignore identity, the question of self-determination does not vanish, it waits. Today's episode explores the relationship between identity, borders, and the right to choose, drawing lessons from Europe, America, Asia, and Africa, and applying them to the continued relevance of Biafra and the sacrifice of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. This is not an argument for chaos, it is an examination of why the demand for consent is one of history's most persistent forces. Identity, more than a cultural detail. Identity is not a slogan, it is lived experience, language, memory, shared suffering, and collective aspiration. When states dismiss identity as secondary, history responds with instability. Examples abound. The Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed because it tried to govern diverse identities without consent. Yugoslavia fractured when suppressed national identities resurfaced. The Soviet Union dissolved when republics reclaimed identity and choice. These outcomes were not accidents, they were consequences. Identity ignored becomes identity politicized. Borders, historical constructs, not sacred truths. Borders often present themselves as permanent. History disagrees. Europe's borders changed repeatedly. Germany unified from fragments. Italy unified from city-states. Czechoslovakia peacefully divided. The Baltic states re-emerged. In Asia, Pakistan and India were partitioned. Bangladesh emerged from Pakistan. East Timor separated from Indonesia. In Africa, Eritrea separated after prolonged struggle. South Sudan emerged after decades of conflict. Borders changed not because people loved division, but because existing arrangements failed to accommodate identity and consent. The American example: consent as founding principle. The American Revolution was rooted in this single idea: government derives legitimacy from the consent of the governed. This principle did not require cultural uniformity, it required agreement. When consent was denied, separation followed. Today, this idea is celebrated as democratic foundation, not extremism. History reminds us that self-determination was once radical everywhere. Europe, normalizing the right to choose. Europe often treats self-determination as a resolved issue, yet its own history contradicts that belief. Scotland was granted a referendum. Catalonia demands one. Ireland achieved independence after prolonged resistance. The key point is not outcome, but recognition of the right to ask. The refusal to even discuss identity questions has consistently proven more destabilizing than dialogue itself. China and Russia. Unity through force versus unity through consent. China and Russia present complex cases where unity is prioritized over consent. History shows us that such systems require constant enforcement. Where identity is negotiated, stability emerges. Where identity is suppressed, tension accumulates. This is not judgment, it is historical observation. Africa and the colonial border problem. Africa inherited borders drawn with little regard for identity. Colonial administrations prioritized efficiency over consent. After independence, leaders feared revisiting borders, often to avoid chaos, but the cost was unresolved identity conflict. Biafra represents one of the earliest and most painful examples of this dilemma. The failure to address identity then did not eliminate the question, it postponed it. Biafra. Identity interrupted, not resolved. The Biafran War ended militarily, but not historically. There was no comprehensive truth process, no collective healing, no consent-based resolution. Instead, memory was buried under slogans of unity. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's advocacy exists because identity was never negotiated, only suppressed. Self-determination is not anti-unity. History shows the opposite. Czechoslovakia's peaceful split preserved relations. Scotland's referendum strengthened democratic legitimacy even without separation. Quebec's votes reduced tension by recognizing choice. Dialogue reduces conflict, denial fuels it. The role of youths in identity renewal. Younger generations often revive identity questions not because they seek instability, but because they inherit unanswered history. They ask, why was this silenced? Why was this unresolved? Why are we forbidden to discuss it? Across history, youths have reignited civil rights in America, anti-colonial movements, Eastern European independence. Biafra's insurgence among youths follows this global pattern. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and the language of choice. At its core, Kanu's message emphasizes choice, not forced allegiance, not imposed silence, but the right to decide. History respects movements that frame demands around consent rather than coercion. Whether one agrees or disagrees with outcomes, the principle of choice is foundational to modern political legitimacy. When states fear questions more than answers. History warns us that states collapse not because questions are asked, but because they are forbidden. The Roman Empire ignored internal identity strains. The Ottoman Empire delayed reform. The Soviet Union denied self-expression. Each collapsed not from debate, but from refusal to engage it. Responsible discussion in a modern world. This episode does not argue that borders should be redrawn recklessly. It argues that dialogue must precede denial. Modern societies must allow open discussion, respect historical memory, separate advocacy from criminality, and treat identity with seriousness. Stability built on silence is temporary. Conclusion: the question that history never drops. History repeatedly returns to one question: who decides? When identity, borders, and governance are aligned through consent, stability follows. When they are misaligned, history revisits the issue, sometimes painfully. Biafra remains relevant because the question of consent was never answered. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's sacrifice exists within this unresolved space, not as provocation, but as reminder. We end with this reflection. If borders can change, but identity endures, is it wiser to silence the question of choice or to confront it honestly?